I am pleased to have Spike Lee with me live in Studio Q. Welcome.
Good morning.
So, Spike, this film has been out in the US for a while. It's just opening now in Canada. There's been lots of big conversation, lots of praise, lots of controversy. Generally speaking, you're no stranger to either of those things. But has there been anything surprising about this particular release for you?
No, I mean, I don't think that I saw anything in the release of Chi-raq that I haven't seen since my first film, She's Gonna Have It. August 9th will be the 30th anniversary, so it's nothing new.
Nothing new for you.
Mhm.
Just so our listeners are caught up, so Chi-raq is based on the Greek comedy Lysistrata from about 400 BC.
411 BC, written by Aristophanes.
Written by Aristophanes. It's a famous story. The Greek women try to end the Peloponnesian War by going on a sex strike. So, fertile ground for laughs there. What made you want to transpose that story to modern day Chicago or to America?
Well, it still works. I think that the people still doing Shakespeare, people doing stories, movies about the Bible. All the people in there are white. No people of color. So Kevin Wilmot and I, my co-writer, we just felt that we could make a contemporary version of this, and it will work very well in Chicago, whose other nickname is called Chi-raq, combination of Chicago and Iraq. That name was coined by local Chicago rappers because they feel and still feel that they're living in the war zone. Now, this is not all Chicago. Chicago is the most segregated city in the United States of America. So we're really talking about where the violence is taking place is in the South Side and the West Side of Chicago, and those are predominantly black neighborhoods.
Do you remember when that idea struck you that you could transport this story to modern day Chicago and it would work?
Well, Kevin and I tried to do this film 6 years earlier, but it was placed in a nondescript city, so we couldn't get it done, and we tried to do it again, and we said, we came with the idea of Chirac and it taking place in Chicago.
The main topic you're tackling with this film is violence, but is there a commentary on relationships as well for you?
Well, there's many things we deal with this film, but I would say the most important one is the loss of life. This epidemic going on in America. 99 Americans die every day. Think about that. 99 Americans die every day due to gun violence. A third of them from suicide. So it's crazy.
There's a lot going on in this movie. There's lots of targets for satire, the police, the military, politicians. Was there anything in particular you were excited to get in your crosshairs to satirize?
Everything that we did, we had there's an expression, we threw in everything but the kitchen sink, and this film we feel is very relevant, and there's an urgency to this film. And now, if you look on with Trump, and this country is in a very tricky, delicate position. I read the papers this morning where Trump made a statement that if some shenanigans go on the convention, he doesn't get the nominee, then it's going to be a riot. Well, what he's actually saying is he's giving his supporters the green light to riot. So all this violence that is surrounding him, I think he's architect of it.
These seem to me like the most volatile times I've ever lived in.
Yeah, but you're not that old.
I'm not that old, but
You're a young guy.
I'm a young guy, but these seem particularly volatile times that we live in right now. Let's start with just gun violence, because that's at the center of this film. What do you think needs to be done about gun violence?
Well, number one, there are very sensible laws we put in place, which President Obama has tried to do, that do not infringe upon people's second right amendment. just very sensitive. I mean, let me give you an example. If you're on the FBI's terrorist list, no-fly list, that means you cannot buy a plane ticket, but you can go in a gun store and buy a gun. Now, does that make any goddamn sense to you? That's crazy. You can't, if you're on the terrorist list, you can't buy a plane ticket, but you can go in a gun store and buy AK-47.
Hmm. So there's
Does that make sense to
there's
you?
some common sense laws that could be put in place, in your opinion.
Yes, very much so.
Let's talk about this volatility that you're seeing right now, the delicate situation. What do you think is at the heart of it?
Hate. Like one of the the rings radar he was wearing. People not wearing the love, they're wearing the hate.
But where does the hate come from?
I mean, you have to get someone much smarter to answer that question, but where did the hate come from to annihilate Native Americans? Where did hate come from to take our ancestors from Mother Africa to four corners of the earth and put them in slavery? Where did that come from?
Hmm. Big
We
question.
don't. We ain't got enough time.
No.
I got
All the movies.
I got 2 more minutes.
All the movies in the world might not answer that question. I want to get back to this plot and adapting this particular story for a second. Were you ever worried about this plot playing into stereotypes about black sexuality,
No,
hypersexuality?
No, because number one, I heard that already with the first film, She's Gonna Have It, which will be 30 years old August 9th. And number two, the black women in this film are very strong, very smart, and so why can't they be sexy too? The premise of this film, which is the premise that we adapted from Lysistrata, play written by Aristophanes way back in 411 BC, these are women who are engaging in a sex strike. So, if you are engaged in a sex strike, how can you not use your sexuality in that to get what you want? Doesn't make sense.
So, Spike, you've been getting praises for this film. Some are calling Chi-raq the best thing you've done in recent years. But you've been getting criticism, too, particularly from people in Chicago who say, Spike Lee, you're the most New Yorker ever, and this isn't your story to tell because it's based in Chicago. What do you say to those people?
God bless them.
You have a tremendous amount of patience for that criticism.
It's early in the morning. God bless them.
What were the?
But here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
As I've said this several times, sir. I've been making films since 1986, and from the very first film, She's Gonna Have It, one of the charges against that film was that it was exploitive of African American women's sexuality. On one hand, other women were saying that they enjoyed the film because it was showing the freedom women should be able to have. So, with the stories that I tell, you're going to get two reactions because we deal with very volatile subject matter, and you cannot do a film and expect everybody's going to like it. I mean, one of my most well-known films, Do the Right Thing, it was criticized when it came out too. People were saying, writers were saying this film is going to incite African Americans to riot across the country, and then blow beyond my hands. That this film will be the reason why David Dinkle's not become the first African American mayor. So it's not like this is new territory. It's not new.
So, in your experience, you have patience and people come around to appreciating the work for its own merits. Is that?
This thing is called art. People have their own interpretations. Everybody comes to the theater from different backgrounds, different mindsets, and that's just the way it is.
What about this issue? Some people feel like satire is not the way to address something as serious as police.
Have you ever seen a film called Dr. Strangelove, sir?
I haven't. Again, I'm a young guy.
That has nothing to do with it. You sound like one of my film students, NYU. You have Netflix. That's no excuse. You ever heard of Stanley Kubrick?
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest filmmakers ever. He did. You should. You have Netflix.
I got Netflix.
I have an assignment for you.
Okay.
Watch Doctor Strangelove tonight. This film is about the destruction of this God's earth, nuclear destruction. What is more serious than that? That film is funny as a motherfucker. Hilarious. In fact, I showed it to my class. Excuse profanity. I showed it to my class 2 weeks ago because they never seen it. What is more serious than destruction, the nuclear destruction of this earth? That film is hilarious. Network is another example of satire.
I've seen Network.
Yes,
Listen-
directed by the great late Sidney Lumet and written by Patty Chayefsky. Again, serious subject matter. We go back to 411 BC.
So I guess
Lysistrata.
I guess my question.
There's a whole history of whether it's a play. There's a whole history of art using satire to deal with serious subject matter.
Well, that's satire almost by definition, right? Is it has to have a point, it has to be dealing with something serious. But I guess my curiosity is why does it feel like there are limits to satire now? Like it seems like is it that younger audiences are used to a more naturalistic style? Like what do you think is?
I cannot explain it, but I mean I've not done a survey of young people. First of all, I wouldn't make that generalization that young people don't understand satire. So,
but I would say generally speaking, of late,
when you think,
I would say
you just said generally. I'm talking about don't make a generalization, and you say generally speaking.
Okay, but would you agree? Would you agree with this? Of late, there's been a lot of criticisms of comedy, of jokes. People don't seem to be able to receive satire, receive humor, maybe the way they have even as early as a decade or two ago.
I disagree. Young folks dig Dave Chappelle. I mean,
Who makes a great
stuff,
appearance in this movie.
His stuff is very, very political. So I just wouldn't make that sweeping generalization. Sir.
Okay, no problem. Okay, a couple more questions before I let you go. Film and television have been under a lot of pressure lately to address racial diversity.
And rightfully so.
And you've been a part of that conversation for decades. What's your perspective on the recent conversation, what we've seen in the last 6 months to a year?
I think it's great. I think it's coming to a boil. I think that minorities, women, people just fed up with this one-dimensional outlook of the world that is in the command of the white males. These are people, I call them the gatekeepers, that decide what are we going to make, what aren't we going to make, whether it's network TV, cable, streaming, or Hollywood films. And The Voice, they have been heard and changes are being made.
Have you seen any changes, any shifts behind the scenes?
Well, right after a couple of days after the whole thing broke, after the Oscar nominations, the board of governors had a emergency meeting and did several changes to change the diversity of the voting members.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a recent study that came out of UCLA, I think, that says a study: films with more diverse casts make more money. So this whole thing is happening, and changes are being made. People who were asleep are waking up and knowing that they got to step up.
On the topic of racial diversity in film, you've said one sign that racial diversity has arrived is the day Black and brown people get, quote, green light votes. You're talking about studio executive and ownership level.
We're not in that room when they had these green light meetings when they decide, again, what they're going to make and what they're not going to make.
And that would be real change once we get in those
Yes,
rooms.
that's much more important than Oscars. But you have to see the nominations are really the result of the people making the films.
Finally, before I let you go, where do you see Chi-raq in your catalog in terms of what you're trying to offer to the conversation in America and around the world?
That's a very simple answer. Another Spike Lee joint.
Spike Lee, thank you for chatting
Thanks
with
for
me.
having me.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.